Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to learn two critical concepts. The two critical concepts that belong to the same school of criticism, that is, new criticisms, and the two critical concepts that are intentional fallacy, number one, number two, affective fallacy. And this video is going to be very helpful for those who are uh, studying English in graduation or in post graduation, and for those uh, who are preparing to appear in the NTA, NET, UGC, SET, etc. In this exam, often the question setters ask question from this area. So this video is going to be very helpful for them. Is helpful or useful? Uh, Please then subscribe my channel and share it among your friends. So let us start our discussions. So we shall learn in details what are the two fallacies, are the two critical concepts. Okay, first, that is intentional fallacy and affective fallacy. These are two inseparable key concepts of new criticism. You know that new criticism analyzes and evaluates a particular work of art, eschewing reference to the biography of the author, the social condition of the time of its author, and its psychological or moral effect on the reader. So, two critics, Wimsatt and Beardsley, William K. Wimsatt and Beardsley, brought these two critical concepts in critical theory in their book, The Verbal Icon, Studies in the Meaning of Poetry. Sorry, published in 1954. Published in 1954. 54. Published in 1954. Okay. These two concepts they brought into their book, The Verbal Icon. These two critical concepts to denote the confusion between the text and author, and the confusion between the text and its result. So confusion between the text and its author is intentional fallacy, and the text and its result is affective fallacy. Let us elaborate them in details for our better convenience. First, we should know what new criticism is actually, because it will help us to understand the two concepts. Text itself became the battle cry. Text itself became the battle cry of the new criticism. The text is a self-sufficient entity, and it exists for its own sake. And the motto of this school of criticism is to study the words on the page and how the word speaks for itself. The preferred close reading of a text, or they want to study the uh, aesthetic merit of a work of art by uh, textual criticism. So text is very important to them, not the context. Text is important to the new critics, not the context. Okay, so text itself on the page, words on the page is very important to them. They stressed on words on the page, how the words make produce the meaning of a text. They search it. Next, the sure knowledge of the author's intended meaning is unavailable. Sometimes the text does not live up to the author's intention. Point number 2. And then next, point number 3. Sometimes the text is even more meaningful, rich and complex than the author realized. And sometimes the text, the meaning of the text is simply different from the meaning the author wanted to have. So, therefore, knowing an authorial intention tells us nothing about the text itself, and this is why the two new critics, coined the term intentional fallacy. To refer to the mistaken belief. Fallacy means mistaken belief. Mistaken belief that author's intention is same as the text meanings. So, intentional fallacy refers to the mistaken belief that author's intention is same as the text's meaning. Here you may ask that then what will be then the standard for judging the success of a work of art, or how would we measure the aesthetic merit of a text? I have at the very outset of our discussions told you that the text is a self-sufficient verbal entity, autonomous entity, and self-sufficient verbal entity, autonomous entity, and sole source of evidence for interpreting it. The new critics stressed on the word, phrase, sentence, structure. They stressed on tension, ambiguity, figurative language, tension, ambiguity, paradox. All these together produce the meaning by which we can critically appreciate a poem. So these elements, they call the formal elements, they to work together. They work as a unit in an organic unity, and they produce meaning with which we can appreciate a poem. Okay, let us come to our look. Just as we cannot look to the author's intention to find out the meaning of a work of art, neither can we look to the reader's personal response. Any given reader may or may not respond to what is actually provided by the text. Readers' feelings and opinions may be produced by his or her personal association from the past than by the text itself. And a reader may interpret a text from his or her point of view, from his own perspective. Different reader will interpret a text differently. So the responses will vary against each other, and the final outcome will be chaotic. Different reader will interpret differently, so there will be a lot of interpretations, and the final outcome will be chaotic. And such kind of practices is what is an example. Such kind of practices is an example of what the neo-critics, again the two neo-critics, William K. Wimsatt Jr. and Munro C. Beardsley, called it the affective fallacy. Let us sum up our discussions. While intentional fallacy confuses text with its origin, intentional fallacy intentional fallacy confuses text with its origin. Affective fallacy confuses the text with its affects, with its emotional effects that the text produces on the readers. Then affective fallacy confuses text with its emotion. It produces upon the reader. And affective fallacy aims in impressionism. By impressionism, I mean that if a reader does not like a character, then that character must be evil. And relativism, if the text means whatever the reader thinks it means. Okay. Thus, by intentional fallacy, the new critics guards literary criticism from biographical, historical criticism. Intentional fallacy guards literary criticism from biographical, historical criticism, from biographical, historical criticism, and by affective fallacy, they protect criticism from the reader response criticism or theory. So, by intentional fallacy, they guard literary criticism from biographical, historical criticism, and by affective fallacy, they protect literary criticism from reader response criticism or theory. Or in other way, we can say that reader response criticism has developed as a reaction against the affective fallacy. And here I shall tell you a fact that everybody should know, that intentional fallacy and affective fallacy are two separate essays, independent essays. The intentional fallacy and the affective fallacy. The intentional fallacy, published in 1946, and the affective fallacy, published in 1949. Critics, one of the new critics, Wimsatt, wrote these two essays, the affective fallacies and the intentional fallacy, in collaboration with philosopher Monroe C. Beardsley. Don't mismatch this. That the two essays Wimsatt wrote in collaboration with Beardsley, but the verbal icon, the studies in the meaning of poetry, solely written by Wimsatt. Only for these two essays, the affective fallacy and the intentional fallacy, intentional fallacy in 1946, the affective fallacy in 1949. He collaborated with Beardsley, and his book, The Verbal Icon, Studies in the Meaning of Poetry, solely written by Wimsatt alone. Okay. So this much for today's video, and if the video seems to you that it is helpful or useful, you can please subscribe my channel. Thank you.